Morning, traders. Welcome to the pre-market analysis that we open to the public every single Wednesday. Thanks for joining us this morning. Going to give you guys a little bit of a breakdown of what's going to happen. This is Spartan speaking, by the way. So once I'm done here, Beth's going to come on. She's going to be going through any of the bigger picture items that make sense to be looking at today. News events that occurred over the evening or that are going to be occurring today, as well as going through any of the bigger picture ETFs, commodities, etc. That also makes sense to be looking at. Once that's done, I'm going to be going through the individual names that I'm looking at that are gapping up, gapping down. We'll talk about the news associated with those gap up, gap downs, as well as go through the technicals on them and build an action plan for those. Lastly, we're going to go through the, with myself, we're going to be going through the SPY, the FANG, the Qs, IWM, and the VIX. So we'll take a look at the bigger picture, ETF or bigger picture names as well that definitely trade with the market. Then we'll pass over to Self-Beach. He'll be going through any of the analyst calls he's looking at for today, macro environment, money flow, what he's thinking for today, and individual names. Then we'll do a quick little recap of those names that we built an action plan for, and we'll be ready to go. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Beth, and I'll talk to you guys shortly. Beth, if you're ready, it's all yours.
I am indeed. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my friends. Welcome. Pre-market here at Spartan Trading.com. Interesting day today. We do have the Fed minutes, and I actually do think this could be interesting and important. We'll see what the verbiage looks like. Powell came out yesterday, and it's like, whatever. He had a taped thing. Whatever. So Friday, Monday, Tuesday, we've had these end of the day short cover rallies, right? Which is kind of, we haven't seen in quite some time. We have probably a very important earnings, and that's in NVIDIA. And the semis are important, and we know this to be true in terms of the market. We'll see how that goes. But the reality still is Microsoft, Apple, these are really key components. It's a fascinating situation we're in right now. And I continue to be on the side that the Fed F- rating continues to get it wrong. And I know that Jamie Dimon came out and a couple other people came out and basically were on the same page here and said they have failed in regards to inflation. We're going to talk a little bit about that. There was an interesting build. You know, look, anybody who thinks they know what the API crude stock is going to be, it's like weather, right? It's like economists, right? It's a random walk theory. So you really don't know how that's going to play out. I actually think Boyle is setting up for a breakout. You know, the drill, consolidating in the upper quadrant, yada, yada, yada. This would make a lot of sense. And I think it would catch a lot of people off guard and by surprise if that were to happen. Okay. All right. Overnight, this is confidence in Germany. A little bit worse than expected. GDP growth, a little bit better, but this is fine, all right. ECB's meeting, having a lot of talk. Look, Lagarde came out and basically said they're blinking. The Fed came out and said they're blinking. When you blink like this, we pay with the cost of goods and services. It's that simple, okay? Mortgage backs, yada, 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 that came out. The application's down some more. We do have durable goods. All right, so let's see how that plays out. And then the crude, yada, yada, yada. And then we have the Brainerd speaking. We have some auctions. And like I say, the FOMC minutes should be rather interesting. And that's at 2 o'clock. Right? What do we got? Dick's Express. This Express is kind of interesting. I'm not exactly sure. I think people want to kind of see how that plays out. But you know, we get the same old drill. The NVIDIA, Snowflake, Splunk, and then we've got the Chinese. You know, Lee came out and said, yeah, they're going to do quantitative easing stimulus. Okay, that's the only thing that's going to prop stuff up. But then we got Dollar Tree and Dollar General. This is going to be, for me, really important. Right? Okay. All right, so this is the earnings whisper Monday report. I forgot to do it yesterday, but hey, let's do it today. Better than expected for the month of May so far. There's nothing this isn't, like I say, a lot of these things are misrepresentational in terms of what's actually going on with the market. But the reality hasn't changed. Recession, we go down to 35, 40% on the indices. No recession, then we're probably close to a meaningful low on some of these things. I think what's going to happen is that a lot of these are going to be taken down to the point where we're going to see a bounce, but not quite yet there, right? So this is Buffett, 1977. It is no longer a secret that stocks like bonds do poorly in an inflationary environment. Okay. Let's talk about something here. All right. And then you can see, I mean, look, the Fed is basically, they hung their hat on employment, right? And yet we have crazy ass tight labor market, right? High wages, all this stuff, and yet they don't give a damn about the raising rates. There is a huge disconnect, okay? If you look here, since World War II, S&P 500 earnings have fallen by an average of 13% during a recession. Forward PE multiples have fallen by an average of 21%. There's a problem here. There's a disconnect going on. And if you look here in terms of their cycle, they are looking for, obviously, the market to go lower. I still like the staples. I still like the divvies. I still like that, okay? I still like the healthcare. I still say that these consumer staples, big boys, Pepsi, Coke, guess what? If it's a choice between you going to Starbucks and you buying a Coke, okay, guess what? You're gonna buy a Pepsi more than you're gonna pay for. That you can rationalize versus a Starbucks, right? Today, let's take a peek. So, BMO, God bless you, Canadian banks. These banks just know how to print money. Day in, day out, week in, week out, you name it, they do it, right? So DA, ZH was up, right? Dix, but they got it lower, right? Express, Nordstrom did more of a buyback. All right, let's talk. There's a great article here talking about why the Fed didn't act faster. This is out of Barron's, right? So they're talking about this FAIT, right? So let's just take a peek here. FAIT, what is that? Basically, the Fed has hung its hat on flexible average inflation targeting, i.e. PCE TWIM. This is what it means, okay? Flexible average inflation targeting. And the problem is, once again, they're not going far enough back. This is the problem we have. It's well, I can't say that, right? F minus. This is why anybody who thinks we're done on the upside in a commodity super cycle after we're in the second year, okay, by definition, it's a minimum of 5 years. God bless. That's all I have to say. God bless. Inflation and unemployment haven't behaved like this in 70 years. Why it matters. We're rewriting things here. And the reason why we're rewriting is because of COVID. But if COVID hadn't happened, trust me, the Fed funds would now be probably 3.5%, 4%, maybe higher. Okay, maybe higher. All right. This is, they're not, like I say, central banks blinking. All right, what's going on here? Wow. Okay. Boots on the ground, Eunice. Lover. This came out that they basically are looking at these re-education camps. Shoot to kill orders. I mean, you just don't want to go there, right? You just don't want to go. Right? God bless Cardinal Sen calling out the Vatican. Yeah. All right. Okay. Look at this. Who owns stocks? Who doesn't own stocks? Share of consumption. you know, we can have this argument as long as you want, but it just keeps widening and widening, and it will widen even more. And when you get to a tipping point, things will happen, and that will impact the market, right? So this is what I'm looking at right now, and this is really kind of important for me because this was we get down to here in terms of analysts and guidance lowering, okay, and this is where we are right now. So this tells me I don't think we really have any sort of meaningful rally in this market until this guidance continues to come down to this level. Analysts, businesses, et cetera, okay. And this is where we went. Remember October, November, December in 2018. This is what caused the market to go down the way it went down. All right, what do we got? I was looking at the Smith & Wesson. It's up because, well, when we have these sort of things in the United States, people buy guns, right? As a public service note, my heart goes out. This is just, I don't know. I still can, look, can someone explain to me, please, why anyone who's not military or in, police or whatever are allowed assault style rifles? I just don't understand this. Guns, I don't care. Have as many as you want. Rifles, I don't care. But assault style? I don't know. What else have we got going on? Must be able to destroy Musk Starlink if it poses a threat. Wow, what does that mean? Oy vey. What do we got? Baby formula, Pfizer to sell vaccines, drugs at low prices. God bless for this too. I mean, this has to happen. You know, we have to, those who have to give to those who don't. That's just, you know, moral and ethically from my point of view, right? We'll see how things play out. It looks like, when was the last time we had like a flat opening? I don't know. Dick's Sporting Goods eyes on dire forecast for full year sales. We know that, likely show continued growth in cloud and gaming. Oh, I wanted to show you this to you. Okay, so this is no joke, right? So this is over 23 years, NVIDIA. This should be a good earnings report, okay? All right. So when you factor in, you know, the midterms, right? This is what it looks like. Just saying. All the way down to August, 100% statistical probability going back 5 midterms that NVIDIA will be down 27%. Mal, are you here? Just showing it to you. So don't underestimate, and this is why I haven't been shouting out, don't, especially on the bullish side. Yeah, you may get a little bit of a pop, okay, like this, but then it rolls over. You cannot overestimate the impact that a shit show this is every 2 years with this cycle, right? Just saying. Okay. What do we got on balance? Stock futures waiver, yada, yada, yada. Twitter stock, we know. What else? Contrarian value fund, this is kind of interesting. Exxon Chevron Morel, feel a mood shift going on into annual meetings. I continue to say this, and nobody seems to want to listen to me. This is a business. Basically, this happens every maybe 10, 20 years for this business, okay? Anybody, they could have, it doesn't matter. They were never, ever, ever going to drill more when you're in this cycle, ever. They don't do that, right? Thinking that a government can basically change that. I keep saying this, nobody listens to me. It's greed. They want to basically give it back, divvies. They want to give it back to their investors, and they will. Now, what does that mean for us? That means that a lot of these institutions that are so friggin' ass light, okay, on some of these oil names will continue to buy, right? They, you know, the MTUM with BlackRock, they're switching over to, on this into this. You know, it still has now. The question is, some of these did not have good earnings, and that's a red flag for me. I think what you're going to see is these junior refiners, these smaller little names, they're the ones who have the capacity. A lot of this is a function of hedging, right? So a lot of these companies do hedge. So like if you look at the natural gas side, a lot of them, a large percentage do not hedge. Okay, so that's why on the natural gas side, I think these refiners, these junior refiners can actually go higher. That's just oil versus nat gas. A lot of these companies just hedge. And that's why I think in terms of opportunity, whoa, I shouted out this morning that I think we were breaking out on Boyle. I shouted that at 7:44 a.m. I don't know if any of you saw that. Guess what? We just broke out. Love it. Okay, what do we got? Mortgage demand, we know that, yada, yada, yada. We know that. Why are we willing to live with carnage? I don't know. Downgrades Best Buy demand, yeah, downright scary and untenable. So if it's chip industry, I agree. You know what? Actions and deeds. I don't understand this. Shut up and do something. Yesterday, we had this interesting put action. See, I always like to see what these guys do after hours or 10 minutes before. Okay, XLP, there was some put hedges putting on. Now, the reason why I say that is because, you know, it's only next week. 73.50s in the money. You do the math. Okay, all right. What do we got? Insider, Okay, insider buying, SMFR. And what do we got on the sell side? PLTO. And guess what? A lot of that was not tied to stocks. Okay, so must have been, yeah, anyways. So this got the list. VZIO also got the list. Now this was a grant. That's interesting, right? Yesterday, it was a low volume, right? So anyways. What do we got hyped this morning? BBY, Dollar General, gold, that's Barrick, Nordstrom. You know, there was a Nordstrom sweep yesterday and I weaned out because it was earnings, right? And it was a call sweep. I actually had bought it and I said, nah, I'm not going to keep it overnight. Should have. Well, I don't know. Anyways, what do we got in terms of analysts now? Downgrades, upgrades, right? BBY, overweight to equal weight, right? And then let's look at today as well. And then the reason why I look at this, FANG, but they lowered their price target, so whatever. Barclays, right? Kilroy, yada yada, APD, MON, molecular partners. All right, so let's see what our friends here are, peeps and pipettes. So it's all about success, right? ANTM, Anthem. Yeah, but 21.1%. Wolf, the dude, is good. Now he came out with a lot of stuff. Anthem, you see him here. You see what he's doing, right? CDS, right? All of these. This was a hold, buy, 4.8, yada, 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 5.7. Reiteration all across the board. Okay. All right, let's take a peek here on the sentiment side. What's going on? Is there any reason to be bullish? Part one, the economy is still fine. And the statistical probability right now is still low for a recession because you know the definition of a recession, right? Okay, so now this is looking at the Schiller PE. I know, I'm not a big fan of it, but every now and then, every like 20, 30 years, it gets it right, right? So last time we had something like this, Dow was down 89%, 80%, right? This was the dot-com bubble, right? And then you have the 2008 financial crisis, yeah, and then, you know. But if you look at it like, if this is this, and this is this, basically you're looking at 22.5 down to 12. So, I mean, yeah, you can still go a lot lower, right? Probably down to maybe here, maybe 25, probably down to here, I think 22 and a half. So it's all a function of recession. Now, here's the other side of that coin. Commodity index. Yippee, guess what? Commodity super cycle. Number one, NASDAQ high-low ratio. Okay, this is nice because it goes further back, right? 1980s, like that. You can see here what happens. 6 months out, 1 year out, the average return is higher. Okay. Part two, same thing. Higher. Breadth, higher, right? Now, don't forget, because of the speed in which we move in this market, we could rip for like 2-3 months, right? And then do nothing or sell off. I don't know. But all of this has the potential to tell us that we are in a point where we could get a bounce, a meaningful bounce. I don't know. I don't care. Look, at this point, it's technicals. Spartan drives the bus intraday. We get a bounce, we get a bounce. If short term there's any positive, and every day I ask Spartan the same thing. Where are we? Is it constructive? We go from there. Okay. Oil, oh my God. All right, so oil now, I'm thinking 175 on it. 175, 180 now on the breakout. Anyways, 10-year hedgers, treasury hedgers, look at this, right? AAI. So, yeah, but like I say, the problem still lies, okay, that we're at a point in terms of inflation that we haven't seen before, okay? This was Tuesday morning, right? I told you that it was extended. We had to have a pullback. Now it's basically reset. And you can see here, XLY is still 2, right? This is indicative that we probably can bounce, but the reality is in a bear market, same way in a bull market, you can be extended on the downside much longer. It's the complete opposite with Keynesian theory. As you can see here, the breadth, still not enough to say, oh my God, we have a low. Fund flows, XLK, so a little bit coming in, XLY a little bit coming in, diamonds now coming out, Qs coming in, and SPY coming in. Okay, all right, let's take a look at the bonds and etc. What do we got? Like I say, we really do have to see what the, and I think the market is going to be have the yips into the meetings, the report, right, from last meeting. Just see what happens. Inflation, right? You know the drill here. This is just absolutely stupid. Minimally, we should be 4.5%, 5%. I can't say it enough. Everything here says the same thing. These guys are so scared shitless about a recession, they're willing to let inflation ramp on. F- continues. All right, so here's the 30-year. I just want to look because of mortgages, right? Look at what we got going on here. So this is fascinating. So the 30-year, actually, the mortgage rates are exceeding what the 30-year is doing. So basically, they've got the yips, and it should be down here, 4.70, but they're at 5.31. Right? That's kind of interesting, right? Here's GDP recession, right? Last time we had a recession was there. So here we are, 2.5, right? This is fascinating because the shorter end looks like, I don't know. This is predicated on next month's June balance sheet, what they do. Everything's predicated on what the Fed does next month on the balance sheet side. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if the market sells off into that. It should. If it doesn't, then it's really going to sell off, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. I haven't been looking at her lately, twins, mainly because she hasn't been that spot on and it hasn't been accurate. Look, a lot of these timing cycles on the fib side, to be honest with you, a lot of things get thrown out when you're in a bear market. They tend to work better in a bull market. on the pullbacks than in a bear market on the bounces. I know that sounds, it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but that's the way it works. And the reason being is because you have to have enough data going back on the bear market side. And we've really only seen it, for 5 months. So if you still have a lot of the bull market data in there, I guess, is the Reader's Digest version of that. Okay. I bought some more boils. I don't know what's going to happen. It's flagging. Okay, I could see the short end invert, and basically, believe it or not, the longer end steepen. I know it's counterintuitive, but I can see that, right? And that's just, once again, it's a function of what the Fed wants to do. I can tell you right now, the Fed wants the yield curve to stay stable and steepen. That's the facts. And the only way they can do that is by selling the longer end, right? The longer dated stuff. Don't forget, this is when they can manipulate things, right? Here's the 10-year, strongly rebuffed, right? Here's the yield, and this is what it looks like in terms of, the inflationary implied. Here's the, so here's the 1030, right? So as you can see here, yield curve continues to steepen. This is why you look at this stuff on a bigger picture, right? China, this is China versus US. Look, as long as the Chinese rates, and they know this to be true, look, as long as the Chinese rates continue to come down and our rates continue to go up, that is a headwind for their equities, right? Last 2 days, I mentioned Monday, Tuesday, right? I saw KWeb, I saw FXI, I saw Asia call sweeps. I've seen more printing than I've seen in a while. So someone's front running into this quantitative easing and earnings. China, rates continue to soften, right? Germany, rebuffed. They can't control this narrative to a certain degree. Here's the German US. Okay, you can see here, it did not break out. And this is the key here. I don't think they want this to break out. So obviously that does break out. That will be another headwind for the German equities, right? As well as FES, right? So.
All right, Beth, ready to pop on here.
Okay.
All righty, guys, let me just pop the screen share up. We'll get going. So you guys are new to chat, and you're flipping over into the page chat from the free Discord. Make sure to click the Discord link that's emailed to you. One quick note is you do need to leave the server before clicking the link, otherwise you won't be assigned the new roles. So make sure to do that. When you guys do pop into Discord, check out the disclaimer section as well as the new to chat information section. Read it from the top down. We'll go over that stuff in a little bit. All right, pre-market tickers on watch, guys. What do we got going on today? A couple different things: Tesla, Lulu, Nike, DKS, Wendy's, and VRCA. Tesla gapping down and simply the market. Lulu, KGI Securities downgrades Lulu Athletica to neutral. Stocks gapping down, and Nike has not renewed its agreements with its largest franchise in Russia, gapping down. DKS earnings beat EPS and revs year-over-year growth 7.5%. 2023 guidance lowered. DKS is gapping down on that lowering of guidance. Wendy's, a regular find showed that the Nelson Peltz, which is one of their largest shareholders in the company, I believe they hold like 19 point something percent, is considering a potential takeover bid for Wendy's, and stocks gapping up on that. Activist news. The RCA, the FDA has issued complete response letter, CRL letter regarding one of their marketing applications for VP 102, and the stock is gapping down because of that. Let's take a look at all the names here from a technical standpoint intraday. So first two we're going to be looking at today, guys, are going to be Tesla and Lulu. And as you know, I've been short Lulu for a couple days now on a swing. Let's have a look at these two. All right, Tesla, Lulu. So Tesla gapping down, as we know. The name is definitely stair-stepping to the downside here, as we can see. One thing I'll note is it is extended on the daily to the downside. So because it's gapping down in sympathy with the market and is extended, that will alleviate some of the selling pressure, in my opinion. All right, let's take a look at where we got room to today. Get all the major support levels. lower end labeled. Starts to get quite tight around this area. Looks like something above 594. Low, nope, there isn't actually. Okay, let's take a look at this thing today. So actually quite tight support levels here, coming into the 594 level. So pivot to the downside today is going to be 618. That level is unable to hold. We got room towards 605.29 to 593.83. Able to hold. We look for pushback to 628.42 to 648.42 on the upside. Overall on Tesla, going to be leaning bearish, looking for a continuation lower today if the pivot point is unable to hold. So we'll see what happens in that regard. But Tesla, let's take a look at Lulu. So Lulu, a little bit of a gap down there. We're at what, like 251 a share. This thing's being as well stepping to the downside. Yeah, that huge weekly range break, which is the reason why I got into it on the short side. Let's see here what we got. Uh, 249.49 pivot to the downside today. Levels unable to hold. Remember, it's 243 to 236.30. Able to hold. We look for a pushback to 259.59 to 266.61 on the upside. Overall on Lulu, going to be leaning on the bearish side today, looking for continuation lower if that pivot point is unable to hold. So that's Tesla. That is Lulu. Let's take a screenshot of these two and let's move on to the next. All right, let's take a look at Nike. Let's take a look at DKS. So we got a little bit of a gap down on Nike here on 104. Which is right around, I believe. We're right around last day's low. Yeah, we are. Whoops. Wrong tool there. I'll actually just label last day's low. When I go to the intraday chart, a little easier for myself. All right. Let's go to the same level. Pivot. Okay. This should be okay. Let's take a look at intraday here. So 104.72 pivot to the downside today. Those levels unable to hold. In other words, 103.41 to 171. able to hold, we look for a push back towards the 107.34 to 109.75 on the upside. Going to be leaning bearish, neutral, looking for a grind lower. Of course, you're going to see, need to see confirmation below the the last day pivot or the last day's low, which is the pivot today, for continuation lower. So we're going to need a break of that this morning for continuation to the downside. All right, DKS. They definitely sold it off into earnings. And obviously, with that lowering of guidance, it's breaking down even more. Quite a bit of room to come in. And that guidance was lowered for fiscal 2023, which was and is pretty far out looking, right? So that's definitely a negative. But they probably did lower it that far out because on the next couple earnings cycles or earnings reports, they could easily come in and raise it back up if they need to. Things do improve. That's what I think, at least. It's not all bad. They actually did beat earnings this report as well, so that was quite interesting. Anyways, 61.22 pivot to the downside today. This level was able to hold. You got room towards 64.03 to 66.88. That level breaks 69.84. Unable to hold 58.79. The 55.78 will be tested on the downside. Overall on DKS, I'm looking for it to come in a little bit this morning, and I think you're going to get a kind of a curl and a push back to the upside based off of what I just told you. And it was, sold off quite hard, heavily into earnings as well. So that's what I'm thinking there. That's Nike, that's DKS. Let's take a look at the next two names, which are Wendy's and VRCA. Wendy's is at an interesting spot, that's for darn sure. Need to keep the EMA support up. There we go. That should suffice. Let's take a look at the signature day. $18.38 pivot. The sell was able to hold towards 1943 to 2029. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback towards the 1731 to 1662 on the downside. Overall on Wendy's, going to be leaning bullish neutral, looking for a continuation push to the upside today if that pivot point can't hold. So if we get it back above that level, we can see a nice little push and continuation higher to the upside. I know activist news is always, positive. Names beaten down as well to the downside last couple of days or weeks, I should say. So we'll see what happens in that regard. Whether or not we can get a continued spec buying, I guess, on that activist news. All right, VRCA, a smaller name, CRL letter, always negative. So I don't think they got much money. Let's take a look. at their burn rate, all that stuff. 61 million in cash. Literally no revenue. Surprise, surprise, a biotech with no revenue. VRCA. All right. They burn 42 million a year. This probably ties them up for at least 6 months. So it's a pretty big negative, I would say. Yeah, nothing else really in the pipe either. Not good. I'm just doing some fib extensions here to get the lower end levels, because obviously there's no data with it being at all-time lows. There. I don't think I can see anything lower at the moment. Okay. All right, this should work. 288 pivot to the downside today. This level is able to hold. Sorry, 288 pivot, unable to hold towards 220 to 163, able to hold 350 to 429. Will be tested on the upside overall on VRCA, going to be leaning on the bearish neutral side today, looking for a rejection at the pivot, or rejection on any sort of bounce, and a rollover continuation grind to the downside. That's what I'm thinking there. That is Wendy's. That is VRCA. Let's take a look at the spine of the fang, which should be interesting. So market, what's going on here? So market, and let's flip over to the daily chart. Take a look at that as we go through all the bigger names. So what do we got? A little bit of a bounce yesterday. We actually did close above the EMA support in the short term. Ended up actually pushing into that other EMA resistance in the short term on the daily of the upside, and ended up getting rejected, which I thought was quite interesting. So let's see what we got in regards to pivots, all that good stuff, and our levels. I'm just going to label all the close ones here. So pivot to the upside today will be 392.29. This level holds. You got room towards 314.16. That level breaks 396. 04 will be tested, then 398, 470. I'm going further out just because FOMC for later on today. Unable to hold 390.83 to 389.04. That level breaks 386.91 on the downside. Actually going to be leaning bullish neutral at the gate, looking for a little bit of a grind higher. I think the market's acted pretty okay the last couple days. We did reclaim the uptrend off the lows, or we do have an uptrend off the lows, I should say. Hourly chart, you can obviously see the inverted head and shoulders. If you can't, I'm just going to show you. Bang, 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 right? There's your inverted head and shoulders supports. So it's not, overly bearish at the moment. If you look at the daily chart, of course, it's below EMA support, which is a negative. But if we look at the hourly and the short-term charts, it's not as negative at the moment. One thing to also note is the channel on the daily to the downside still intact. So obviously that means the downtrend on the daily chart is intact. And if you can't see that, I'm just going to quickly show it to you. I'm sure you can see it, but maybe not. I don't know. Right. You can see it there. So we still have to get through that downtrend, of course, which is right there. So we'll see what happens in that regard, but going to be leaning bullish out the gate. And then into FOMC, I really don't know what's going to happen. We'll probably grind around. And of course, whatever happens with the FOMC is going to drive the price of the market in the short term. So that's at 2 p.m. and we got to watch for that. All right, Apple. Why isn't this linked? There you go. Apple, similar to the SPY, inverted head and shoulders, but it had a little bit of a lower low, but still, quite apparently there on the daily chart. 137.30 pivot to the downside today. This level is able to hold. We got room towards 139.50 to 141.04. Breaks 142.46. Unable to hold 134.88 to 132.67 would be tested on the downside. And I'm actually going to change the pivot to 139.50 because that's the EMA support on the daily, and it's much closer to the actual price at the moment. So right now, be leading the same, looking for a little bit of a bounce of the gate on Apple. Then we'll see what's what if it rolls over. Let's take a look at Amazon. $20.57 pivot level holds 21.17 to 21.86 will be tested. Unable to hold 20.01 on the downside. Overall on Amazon, going to be leaning on the right now. Actually, the bearish neutral side looks quite ugly. I liked it before, but it's just been fading kind of off to the downside. It did make a lower low on the daily, and it looks like it wants to continue to go lower at the moment. So stair stepping to the downside, you can see almost every single day. So I'll be leaning bearish. You get a little bit of a bounce on it. Out the gate, I'd be looking for it to roll over in the afternoon. That's what seems like it happens. If gaps down, it pops back up, and then it rolls over. And any sort of gap up, it typically rolls over right away at the gate, at least in the short term. All right, let's take a look at Netflix. That chart didn't load up correctly. There you go. So right now it's looking like bearish consolidation to the downside. Why? Well, we're below EMA support at the moment. So, and we're in a downtrend, so it is bearish consolidation, but just fairly tight range. 179.04 pivot to the downside, unable to hold 172.93 to 167.38, able to hold 185.79 to 190.20 on the upside. Overall on Netflix, going to be leaning bearish, looking for continuation lower. Like I said, on the downside on the daily. So that's what I'll be looking for there. That is a Netflix. Let's take a look at Facebook and then Google. So 183.23 pivot to the downside today on Facebook. Unable to hold towards 177.93 to 173.34. Able to hold 188.79 to 194.32. Facebook, only thing it's got going for it on the upside right now is extended to the downside. So if it gets above the pivot, I can look for a bounce, and I will be looking for a bounce. I'll be leaning bullish neutral if the pivot gets reclaimed. Otherwise, I think it does just continue to roll over. So watch the pivot point, super important level on Facebook today. Let's take a look at Google. Google pivot downside today. I guess I don't have any levels here for some reason. That low, that's done. Pivot downside 211.67, sorry, 221.15. Unable to hold, room towards 220.38. Able to hold 22.25 upside. Going to be leaning bearish. Going to be leaning same thing, bullish neutral on Google if it can reclaim the pivot. Quite extended to the downside there. All right, let's take a look at the QQQ's VIX IWM. actually start the VIX as we do. So what do we got on the VIX? Obviously that wedge is tightening. We talked about that yesterday. A bunch of the members mentioned it as well. I know Cody did. 29.99 pivot level hold, turn towards 31.09 to the 32.58. Unable to hold 28.82, 27.39. Not leaning any particular direction, but watch these levels because they will dictate the direction of the market as well as that pivot sitting right in the middle of it at the moment. So that's an interesting spot. We'll have to see what happens in that regard. So that's the VIX. Let's take a look at the Qs and then the IWM. QQQ 28 or 288.30 level holds 29.41. Sorry, 294.91 to 298.46. Unable to hold 282.75 to 276.92 on the downside will be tested. Overall on the QQQs, going to be leaning on the same as the SPY bullish neutral up the gate, looking for a little bit of a bounce, slightly extended to the downside like the Facebook and Google. So that's an interesting little chart. And then we'll see what happens in regards to the afternoon and the FOMC. And last but not least, my friends, let's take a look at the nope, not VIX, IWM. The IWM. All right, IWM pivot to the downside today. 174.94 levels able to hold towards 180.28. It's 183.10. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback towards 171.23. 168.51 on the downside. Overall on IWM, I'm going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side if that pivot point can hold, looking for a push higher. So that is IWM. All right, so that's the SPY, that's the thing. And I'm gonna be leaning bullish neutral on that one as well with the market. Same sort of deal. Morning pop, let me see what's what. So that's the individual names of SPY, the FANG that we're looking at today, guys. Gonna go ahead and pass it over to Selfie while I type up that pre-market action plan. Then we'll come back on, we'll do a quick little recap and we'll be ready for the open. Selfie, if you're ready, it's all yours.
Morning, guys. Okay, what do we got? Hump day here. Let's see what's going on. So the bond, the 10 years down again. Okay, this time 272. Okay, kind of interesting, right? It was about 3-ish. Now it's where it is. So the bond market, what do they tell? What's the bond market trying to tell us? Let's look at the curve for a minute. Okay, so we got 250 and 272, so it's 22 bips, which is the lowest spread we've seen in a while, right? I think the previous low was about 25. What's the bond market telling us? Because it's telling us something, right? It's telling us that maybe we're slowing down pretty good. Okay, maybe it's telling us there's a flight to safety. That's a good idea. Could be telling us rates are topping. Now, if rates are topping, that means the economy is slowing down real good with what we've done so far. So it's probably one of those two things. It could be that people want to be exposed to dollars, and that's the easiest way to get into dollars. Okay, but it's telling us something. I think the jury's out as far as what it's telling us, but it's certainly telling us something, okay, that they came off the way they did. And we're going to have to just watch this really carefully over the coming days and weeks, okay? I personally think the curve is going to invert. And I'm talking 210s now. I'm not talking, 710s or 510s. I'm talking 210s, which is really the benchmark for the warning sign of a recession. Okay, so that's what I think. But let's see, what the hell do I know? Right now, it's my base case, but we'll see what happens going forward. All right, rates in London are basically unchanged. They're at 189 on their 10-year. Their curve is more steeply sloped than ours. Germany, theirs is coming off a little bit, but nothing significant. So they're at like 1, and France is at 1.5 if they're at 1, right? Monkey see, monkey do kind of situation. So we're going to have to focus on the bond market as we always do. and see what the message they're trying to give us is. Let's look at commodities. So oil again, ticking up. You saw Ted Cruz yesterday on TV blaming the administration for a large part of the energy issue that we have. I think they're responsible for some of it. I couldn't quantify the percentage, but it's significant. And now natural gas is breaking out clearly, okay, above 9. So that's a breakout. And all these things that we're seeing destroy the buying power of the consumers. And who's the first casualty of consumer spending decline? Retailers. Okay, of course. So, you know, I've been shouting this song for what? A month, 2 months? And now they're just crumbling. So that's natural gas. Gold, you know what I think of gold. It's just not even worth my time to focus on. Copper's down to 424, so that's in a pretty good trading range. And agricultural commodities are down today, but I don't think you could trust it. They're still at, you know, pretty good levels. Lumber's down to 660, clearly a, you know, housing kind of lead indicator, I'd say, right? And so that's that. And let's move to currencies. Well, in disarray, what happens? They buy dollars. So the dollar's up against North America, it's up against Japan, it's up against China, it's up against the euro, yada, yada, yada. Crypto's really taking it on the chin. I was talking to my brother. His fund was the most successful fund ever in anything. Crypto, equities, you know, what's it called? Venture, any kind of venture, any kind of anything. And they've lost, I think, 80% of their profits this year. And they didn't sell anything. So people are really, and most people, are in at higher levels, I'd say. Okay, so Bitcoin's flat, Ethereum's flat, Solana's down 2%, down to 48. So it went from 25 to 250, and now it's at 48 bucks. Talk about your round trip. But that's no different than many, 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 many high PE tech stocks. And that's why when I talk about them, I say just another high PE tech stock. Bitcoin is a separate animal, but all these other crypto stuff is what I'm referring to. Let's look at the foreign markets. It's kind of shocking to me that we are doing a lot worse than Europe in the fact that they're more closely aligned with Russia than we are. I know our tech group is a real big part of what we, you know, our overall S&P weighting. And so I guess obviously that's the reason, but I would have thought they would do worse than they're doing. I think the DAX is only down like what for the year, 9%, and Britain's up year over year, 6%. Okay, so interesting anyway. Okay, so that's the indexes. What else do we have? So Nikkei was down a tinge. China was basically flattish, up a little bit, 0.5%. Hong Kong was flat. So that's the backdrop. Okay, banks and Fed. We have Fed minutes today. I think they come out what 2ish, more or less. That's what time they usually come out. If I'm wrong, let me know. I think they usually come out at 2, but you never know. Okay, that's that, right? Then we got China and Russia. Russia is really getting super aggressive. Basically, Zelensky was saying they basically destroyed, what do they call it? The Donbas region, is that correct? Basically flattened the whole place. And basically this is the most aggressive they've been so far. So Russia clearly isn't backing down anytime soon. We'll see what happens. Okay, it's we had George Soros talk about it today. He said Russia, Ukraine could be the start of World War III. We all know that, right? He says the repressive regimes, the regime leaders, Putin and Xi, are the greatest threat ever to an open society. I think that's his opinion. I think you guys can agree with it and or disagree with it. I'm just telling you what he's saying, and I'm not going to get political. So I'll just leave it out there. How's that? Okay. Michael Burry, he had a comment, basically relating today's action to 08, like watching a plane crash. Not fun. I'm not smiling. So he basically is telling you in his own little way that he thinks the market's in for an 08 type event. Okay, we'll see. They had the CEO of Cisco on TV this morning, and he made a really good point. He said CEOs for the last 10 years or so have really focused on costs as far as production is concerned. Now they have to focus on resiliency, which means, in effect, what I've been warning about with Apple. Okay, I think this company is super screwed. Okay, and I think they've made really bad mistakes, and I think they're too entrenched in China. And if China decides to go into Taiwan anytime soon, short Apple. Back up the truck and short the shit out of it. It's gonna get massacred. That's my opinion. You guys can agree with it or disagree with it, but I just give you my opinion. Okay, so that's that. So that's Russia, that's Burry, that's Apple. Nike, you saw the news last night that they're leaving Russia, guys. So that's no surprise there. I mean, clearly, Putin is very comfortable with having nothing to do with the West. And my guess is that China's not far off from feeling the same way. So, but we'll see. Okay. What else? You had, what's his name on TV just now? Glenn Hutchins. This guy is a stud. Okay. Really. A huge moneymaker. Incredibly intelligent, a lot of foresight. So let's talk about what he was saying, okay? His base case, first of all, is a recession. He doesn't think it's going to be the deepest recession. He just thinks it's going to take a long time. And that's his base case, okay? And he's worried about, remember when we talk about current, PEs, and we look at it and it's only this or that. And he says, well, the price part has been basically adjusted. Now he's worried about the E, which is the earnings. And we all know that these analysts can't find their ass with both hands, right? So their E part clearly is questionable. And I think the E part is way too high. And so these PE, when you look at forward PEs, I think you're looking at a false narrative. All right. The narrative that these guys know how to accurately or have some idea what the E is going to be is really a leap of faith that I'm not comfortable making, just so you know. I'm just reading what is priced in. Well, if I knew that, twins, then I wouldn't be doing this. I would be drinking pina coladas somewhere. But that being said, I do think certain groups have room on the downside, especially tech. But that's just my opinion. Like I said, if I knew the answer to that, I wouldn't have to waste my time in this chair all day. So that's my opinion on that. I do think tech is the one that you have to really be worried about. These consumer non-durable type of companies. Look what we saw yesterday, okay? Talk about group rotation. What did we see yesterday? We saw the guys buying high dividend paying stocks and companies with more predictable type of earnings. Consumer non-durables, tobacco kind of names. We saw the drug stocks being strong. We saw utilities strong, like that. And I think that is the narrative for now. Okay. If in fact something changed and all of a sudden people wanted to buy, like we had a Kundala moment with Russia and China, these tech stocks would fly in all probability, and those kind of stocks would get hit, but not in that environment. Right now, we're in the safety environment, and those safety stocks tend to do much better in that environment. Okay. I don't really care what Kramer thinks lately. I think he's been so wrong that he's hard to take seriously right now. And I'm a huge Kramer fan. I think it's very hard to come on TV 200 days a year and accurately have stocks that you bring something intelligent to the table. It's just too tough. That being said, every guy that comes on there with an interview, he gives them, accolades for the most part. He takes very few guys to the mat. I saw it with letter U. Was it Upstart the other day? But you don't see it very often. So whatever. He's been wrong. He'll get hot again, but for now, I think he's pretty cold. What else do we have? So we have earnings. Oh, well, let me finish what this guy said. Hutchins. Let me make sure I had everything. Yeah, I think I did have everything. So the big problem is this E thing. That's the next thing we have to focus on. How the companies guide earnings. Like this Dix. Okay, perfect example. All right. The E was clearly way off the mark. You got to be super careful on that kind of stuff. Okay, as far as earnings, we had good earnings in PLAB, Toll, Intuit, Cal, DY, JWN. I showed it a little of that last night. I did cover at 22, sold it at 24. So it wasn't, and I didn't do a lot. So whatever, it is what it is. And you have Wendy's. So Trian is trying to get this thing up and out. Analysts feel it's worth anywhere between 20 and 23. But remember something, guys. I do think they're going to be deals, but the deals are a lot more expensive with interest rates at these levels versus what they were, 6 months ago. So the actual dollars that these guys can spend, the price for the stock is going to be less because of that. Okay? If they have to borrow money, they have to pay more to borrow. It reduces the price they're willing to pay. Obvious, right? And that's what you're going to see in housing too, guys. That's why I think housing is set to take it. I wouldn't say a nosedive, but certainly come in some. Okay, we still have a supply-demand imbalance, but I do think that people can't pay the prices that they were going to pay when interest rates are up as much as they are. Okay, so that's that. So those are the stocks that were good. Did I finish everything I wanted to do? Crypto, I discussed. Russia, oil, virus, Mr. Markets, movers. Okay, yeah, I did. All right, so that's that. What else was there? I told you Wendy's. All right, so now let's talk about the negative. You have Dick's, right? That's no surprise. I despise the retail group, and I don't think they're down enough. So those of you that think this is the bottom, you're entitled to your opinion. I think they got lower to go. Okay, but we'll see. So Dick's missed. VRCA is the biotech disaster du jour. That stock's down a bunch, and KDNY did a stock offering. So tonight we got a big earnings night, right? We have Nevada, NVDA, Snow, Splunk, Williams Sonoma, Box, Guess, U-Haul, Elf, and tomorrow, prior to the opening, you have Baba, which I think could be anything because I think they lie. Macy's, that should be interesting. Medtronic, DG, Dollar Tree, Burlington, BBW, Buckle, Jack in the Box, Man U, GLNG. But the big ones you got: Dollar Tree, Dollar General, Baba, Macy's, WSM, Snow, Nevada. Nevada's the big dog, in my opinion. Okay, so a lot of earnings coming out tonight and tomorrow morning. All right, so that's that. Group rotation. Let's talk about that for a minute. All right. As yield curves flatten and or invert, that's a negative for the banks. So I think people are a little scared of that right now, and you may not get that lift in the banks you want. I think they need to see that curve steepen a little bit. So I'm not so keen on that. I'd rather be in these safety kind of names, like the consumer non-durables, like the drug stocks. We'll see. All right. And you may get a little lift from tech with interest rates coming down some. So people may be less inclined to, they may say, hey, with rates are down a little bit, we could get a bounce here. So if you saw a flush, I wouldn't be opposed to watching for a rally to higher levels. We'll see how that plays out. Okay. And so that's my thinking on that. The new issue market we know is dead as a doornail. There's nothing going on there. I see Chinese stocks are up this morning. I don't know who would buy those stocks. I think they're completely uninvestable at any price, because I do think they're going to be delisted. I think as the way the things are going right now, guys, the relationship between the US and China is so bad that I think that's an inevitable situation unless things improve. All right. The one thing I have been focusing on strategically is my mindset that the consumer is dead. And I think everything that I've been doing, from retail to cruise lines to airlines to travel, I think, okay, how much do they need the consumer? Oh, they need them a lot. Okay, I'll short that one. That's how I've been really navigating for the last few weeks. I think the consumer is really in a bad position, and I don't think it's changing anytime soon. Okay. And last but not least, there was a horrific event last night. I'm not going to give my opinion on gun control. You should all have your own, but think about it. Okay, that shouldn't be happening, and it's very sad. Spartan, it's all yours.
All right, thanks, South Beach guys. Morning, what's going on? So let's take a look at what we got going on today. Pre-market tickers on watch. We'll do a quick little recap of this in just a second. If you guys are on the YouTube stream, you can simply just pause it and read the information here, as well as if you do pop into the free Discord link that is in the description in the YouTube video or the YouTube stream here. You'll pop in, you're going to see the the post in the general mod chat as well, all the charts. So you can click on that, give it a read. Anyways, so let's take a look at what we got going on today, guys. A couple different things: Tesla, Lulu, Nike, DKS, Wendy's, VRCA. Tesla gapping down, safe at the market. Lulu, KGI Securities downgrades Lulu Athletica to neutral, gapping down. Nike has not renewed its agreements with its largest franchise in Russia, gapping down. DKS earnings beat EPS and revs year over growth 7.5%, 2023 guidance lower, stocks gapping down. Wendy's, a regulatory filing shows that Nelson Peltz, largest shareholder in the company, is considering a potential takeover bid for Wendy's, gapping up on that. And then VRCA, CRL letter, gapping down on that. They got no cash, they got a high burn rate. So they got cash for about a year and change, but their burn rate's pretty high. So let's take a look at these names from a technical standpoint intraday. First two we're looking at today: Tesla and Lulu. Tesla downside pivot today. 618.21 levels at unable to hold, 605.29 to 593.83. Able to hold 628.42 to 648.42 on the upside will be tested. Overall on Tesla, going to be leaning bearish, looking for a continuation lower today if the pivot is unable to hold. Let's take a look at Lulu. 249.49 pivot, unable to hold, 243.07 to 236.30. Able to hold 259.59 to 266.61. Overall, Lulu going to be leaning bearish, looking for a continuation lower today as well. Let's take a look at Nike. Let's take a look at DKS. Nike 104.72 pivot, unable to hold, 103.41 to 171 will be tested. Able to hold 107.34 to 109.75 will be tested on the upside. Overall on Nike, leaning bearish, looking for continuation lower. DKS 61.22 pivot, levels unable to hold, 58.879 to 55.78. Able to hold 64.03, 66.88. Looking for a little bit of a pull and a curl on that name for a push higher. Let's take a look at the next two, Wendy's and VRCA. There we go. 1838 pivot level holds 1943 to 2029. Unable to hold 1731 to 1662. Going to be leaning bullish neutral. Going to be looking for a curl on that name. After this little pullback here, and then VRCA 288 pivot level holds 350 to 429. Unable to hold 220, 163 downside. Going to be leaning on the bearish neutral side of VRCA today, looking for a pop, any sort of rejection at resistance levels for a continued rollover on that name. Let's take a look at the spine of the FANG. SPY 392.29 pivot levels able to hold 394.16 to 396.04 will be tested. That little breaks 398.39, unable to hold 390.83, 389.04 on the downside. I'm actually going to type this up real quick, as I always do. 392.29. And you guys don't follow me on Twitter, you should, because I do guide the SPY all day. It's just an FYI. 392 pivot to the upside today. Level holds. Actually, I should say downside or whatever. Level holds, room lower into the room higher, sorry. Room higher into the 394.16 resistance breaks. We see 396.04 tested. Pivot, unable to hold. Room lower into the 390.83 support. Breaks, we see 389.04 tested. Going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side of gate. And then we'll see what happens before the FOMC, probably a little bit of a fade off, I would think, if we do get a push. And then we see what is what. So that's that. All right, let's take a look at the rest of the FANG. Or yeah, let's take a look at the FANG now. Yeah. Apple pivot to the upside today, or downside, I should say. 139.50 levels unable to hold, moving towards 137.30 to 134.88, able to hold 141.04, 142.46 on the upside above that. Going to be leading the same way as the SPY, looking for a little bit of a bounce out the gate, and then we're going to be looking for a push if we can. Looking for a little bit of a grind out before the FOMC, but looking for a bounce only if we get above that pivot point. So watch that level this morning. Amazon pivot to the downside today is going to be 20.57.85, unable to hold. 20.01 will be tested, able to hold 21.17 to 21.86 on the upside overall on Amazon, leading bearish, looking for continuation lower today. Let's take a look at the next name, Netflix here. Pivot to the downside today is going to be 179.04, unable to hold 172.93, able to hold 185.79. Going to be leaning on the bearish neutral side there on Netflix, looking for continuation lower. It has been bearish consolidation on the daily, so I'm going to be looking for follow through in that regard if the pivot is unable to hold this morning. So watch that level. Pivots are going to be really important today out the gate. Facebook pivot upside today is the 183.23 level. Able to hold 188.79 to 194.32 will be tested. Unable to hold 177.93 to 173.34. And like we talked about this morning, Facebook very extended to the downside. So if it does reclaim the pivot, I think it can bounce. But again, you got to look for that reclaim. Google, same sort of situation as Facebook. A little bit more extended though. 21.15 pivot levels able to hold. 22.25 unable to hold. 20.38 will be tested. So watch that pivot as well on Google. And the interesting thing about Google, not interesting, but nice thing about Google is those calls, guys, you get a ton of range to the upside if you do get a bounce, and they're not that expensive. So I'll be watching it. VIX pivot to the, anyways, I guess upside, 29.99 level hold, 31.09, unable to hold the pivot, 28.82. I think it's gonna be a pretty tight range on the VIX to the FOMC, but those are end levels there. 288.30 pivot level holds towards 294.41, 294.91 to 298.46. Unable to hold 282.75 to 276.92 on the downside will be tested. Overall, on the QQQ, going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side today, looking for a continuation push or pop out the gate, and then we can see what happens there. And then let's take a look at the IWM. Last but not least, same sort of leaning as the Qs, 174.94 pivot level holds 180.28 to 183.10, unable to hold 171.23 downside, bullish neutral as well, leaning out the gate, and then we'll see what happens. So that's that, guys. We'll see what happens, guys. If you're new to chat or you're watching the YouTube stream, want to pop in, certainly click that free Discord, or you can pop in for all the alerts, etc. If you go to the website, sign up. Otherwise, thanks for watching. We do this every single Wednesday, and obviously daily recaps every single day. You can watch for those as well, and some educational videos which will pop out. Anywho, that's it.